I was in the nonfiction section and I saw this and I was like, oh, you're coming home with me. I hope that night is super tender. Like a steak. But who is the real monster, Dr. Frankenstein? And so I was thinking, do I really need it in the vintage collection? But it turns out I do, yeah. That is so beautiful. Actually, no, I wouldn't date a cousin, so. Hi friends, today we have a very good old-fashioned unboxing and haul. So grab yourself something cozy to drink. My name is Lexi and welcome back to my channel. Today is one of my favorite videos to film, and that is a good old-fashioned book haul. So every couple of years I actually save up so that I can start to try to complete some of my classics collections, because it's sort of been my dream as a collector of books and an avid reader to complete certain different editions of classics and classic collections. But as beautiful as they are, they're also expensive to complete a lot of the times. And so I usually only let myself do a classics haul once every couple of years. I did one 2 years ago. This is the year that I get to kind of like complete some of the gaps in some of my collections, and I ordered quite a few. And well, here we are. I'm really excited to share with you a bunch of these. I ordered them months ago actually from Blackwell's in the UK, and it takes a little bit for the books to come to my house, and so I don't even remember some of the editions of the books that I ordered. So I'm excited to open these up and like remember what I ordered with you. And in addition to that, I've also purchased quite a few nonfiction books, because at the time I'm filming this, it is actually November and it's Nonfiction November. If you've never heard of Nonfiction November, this is a readathon that happens every single year during the month of November, and it is hosted by Olive from A Book Olive, and I will go ahead and link her channel down below. And she is an incredible resource if you love nonfiction books. So if you're interested in memoirs, pop culture, basically nonfiction on a variety of topics, go to her channel, because like she absolutely knows what's up. I myself don't reach for a lot of nonfiction, but as an avid reader, I love to expand my reading preferences and tastes, and I've wanted to participate in a nonfiction November for such a long time. I've tried in the past, but typically in the past I'm either prepping for my December winter content or I'm doing NaNoWriMo, and I feel like this November is a little bit more chilled and laid back, and so I figured it was the perfect time to kind of maybe build a little bit more of my nonfiction collection and try nonfiction out for the next month. So I also have quite a few books here that are all nonfiction, and most of my books, actually I'm gonna say all of my books, are recommendations from you guys. I asked all of you on Instagram if you had any recommendations for Nonfiction November, and I was so excited because there were so many responses, and I looked up so many of the books and they sounded incredible. So I went down to my local bookstore and I purchased quite a few. I figured it would be really fun to have a little bit of like a mini selection for nonfiction, so that if I really enjoy it, I can just continue to read it throughout the year. Also, there will be wild leaf blowers sprinkled throughout this video, peppered in for your delight. It is fall and my neighbors have decided they absolutely hate all leaves. I mean, that's pretty loud. I had to pause for like an hour as soon as I sat down to film, because two of my neighbors at the same time started doing leaf blowers. And listen, they need to live their best life, but you couldn't hear anything I was saying. So I decided instead to just hang out, chill, and now I have a cozy cup of coffee. So honestly, I feel like all of us won, you know? Anyways, I'm very excited to start this haul. I have no idea what I was saying before, but I'm sure the intro was good. I've got nonfiction and I've got classics, and some very beautiful editions of classics at that. This is a little bit different of a book haul for me because there's not gonna be middle grade and YA literature and even like, I think, current adult fiction. But if you love beautiful classics and you are interested in nonfiction, grab yourself something cozy and let's go ahead and get started. So let's go ahead and start with the unboxing, because it feels like Christmas whenever I get to unbox a package. So when I say I bought quite a few classics, that was not an exact exaggeration. Let me put these down. So let's go ahead and get started with the first one. By the way, all of these were purchased from Blackwell's in the UK, and I will link them down below if you are interested. They're a lot like Book Depository, but I don't think they're owned by Amazon. And I like the little cute logo, which is not on these ones, but it's on the cardboard ones. Okay, great. So the very first one is actually an Iris Murdoch. My friend Brooke, who is in my same Masters for Librarian Science course with me, she loves Iris Murdoch, and so I really wanted to complete more of my Iris Murdoch collection. This is such a beautiful edition. This is from Vintage Classics, and I really love this one because of the cover, but also the spine. I just feel like it looks really pretty in a set, and I actually have all of the Virginia Woolf books in this particular Vintage Classics edition, and I think after my purchases, I now have all of the Jane Austen ones, so I'm slowly trying to complete all of my Vintage Classic collections. And this is about an ex-tax collector who is trying to become a writer, but every single day comes with new distractions. This is The Murders in the Rue Morgue and Other Tales by Edgar Allan Poe, and I don't know a lot about this other than the fact that it is by my love, Edgar Allan Poe. A creepy little soul with a creepy little heart, just like mine. Actually, no, I wouldn't date a cousin. So. But anyways, I'm very excited to pick this up. I love Edgar Allan Poe's writing. I love his short story collections, and I've actually never read The Murders in the Rue Morgue and Other Tales. Okay, I know how to unbox these now. There's a tab. Okay. The next one, The Picture of Dorian Gray. This is by Oscar Wilde. I actually have several editions of this, but I wanted it in this cool little Penguin Classic library. Again, I'm trying really hard to collect these over the course of like 10 years of my life. There's quite a few books in this particular collection, but every couple of years I like to add to it. And this is actually one of my very favorite Gothic literature books, all about a man named Dorian Gray who does not seem to age. I would love to know what beauty balm he is using, you know? Actually, I do know, and I don't want to use it. Where's the tab? We've got another Penguin English Library. This is Tender is the Night by F. Scott Fitzgerald. He writes predominantly about the 1920s in America, and I loved The Great Gatsby. I don't really know a lot about this one, but I'm very excited to read all about Tender is the Night. I hope that night is super tender, like a steak. And here is the very lovely cover, and of course, the super lovely spine. The next one is another Iris Murdoch in the Vintage Classic Collections. This one is called The Sandcastle, and I'm pretty sure Brooke really liked this one. I will leave her Instagram down below if you are interested in following. She's got a great bookstagram, and she has a lot of really great recommendations. Oh my gosh, I didn't even notice. Look at how pretty the inside flap is. That is so beautiful. So this book is following Bill and Rain, who fall in love, but for them to be together, Rain has to disrupt a lot of their personal life. And the question of this book is, what love could survive all of that violence? Unsatisfying. The next one is another Penguin English Library classic, and this is Lady Audley's Secret, and this is by Mary Elizabeth Braden. Braden? Very nice though. Look at that spine. In this outlandish, outrageous triumph of scandal fiction, a new Lady Audley arrives at the manor, young, beautiful, and very mysterious. Why does she behave so strangely? What exactly is the dark secret that this seductive outsider carries with her? Quite intriguing. We've got another Jane Austen book to add to the vintage collections. This one is Pride and Prejudice. I didn't actually own this one because I already had it in several other editions. It's a great book. It's one of my very favorites. And so I was thinking, do I really need it in the vintage collection? But it turns out I do, yeah. And this one is all about Elizabeth and Darcy, who are both prideful and prejudiced. It's not a good summary of Pride and Prejudice. All I know is that it's hot. We've got another Jane Austen, Sense and Sensibility. This is one that I actually have not read. Let's look at the inside flap. The cool thing about these is that the flaps actually match the covers of other books. So this one matches the Pride and Prejudice one. I don't know a lot about this, but she writes all about love. And so I'm really excited to kind of see what take she has on love in this particular book. If you have not read Emma by her, by the way, you're missing out. That didn't work out very well. Okay. Ah, yes. Kate Bush's favorite book. No, just kidding. But I do like the way she sings the song. Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. This is actually one of my very favorite books of all time. I don't know why. I know the love in this is incredibly toxic. If you can even technically call it love, I call it love. I love Heathcliff and Kathy and all of their drama. This is following Kathy and Heathcliff and technically Kathy's brother, whose name I always forget, who lives out in the moors, and they're a very toxic kind of relationship throughout the years. It's good, okay? It's pretty good. Ah, yes, we have another Penguin. English Library Edition. I had to look for a second. This is by Anne Bronte, and it is the Tenant of Wildfell Hall. The cover is so stunning. I want to wallpaper my life in this print, okay? And once again, I love the spine as well. And I don't really know a lot about Anne Bronte or her writing, but I am very familiar with her two sisters, Emily Bronte, who wrote Wuthering Heights, as well as her sister Charlotte Bronte, who wrote Jane Eyre. Oh my gosh, and something else. What was the other famous one that she wrote? I'm really excited to read this because I don't know a lot about the third sister, and I feel like that's a little unfair, you know? Maybe I should learn all about each and every Bronte's writing. So I purchased this. So it says in the back, this sensational, hard-hitting, and passionate tale of marital cruelty sees a mysterious new tenant, Helen, unmasked not as a wicked woman as the local gossips would have it, but as the estranged wife of a brutal alcoholic bully desperate to protect her son. I think this is gonna be really, really hard-hitting, and I'm very excited to see how Anne Bronte writes. Yeah! Oh, yes, okay. So I am trying my best to fill out this particular classics collection. This is by Penguin Classics Deluxe Editions. They're all actually illustrated, and this one is Emma. Look at that. It's so beautiful. And I'm so excited to have this book because Emma is actually one of my all-time favorite classics. I read this with one of my friends, Christine, oh my gosh, several years ago, and I just had the best reading experience, and I'm very excited to have this beautiful, stunning edition. And now we have visitors? Who on earth is ringing the bell? I'm not home. I'm very shy and introverted. Oh, it's a cute guy. Wait, actually, hold on. Okay, this is quite a thick one. This is Vanity Fair, and this is by William Makepeace Thackeray, like Thackeray Binks. This, look at how thick this is. It says, Becky is sly, cunning, and will do anything for money and power, while her friend Amelia is good-natured but naive. In this scandalous tale of murder, wealth, and social climbing, the two women's fortunes cross as they search for love and success across 19th century Europe in the Napoleonic Wars. It sounds really interesting to me. I don't know. Ooh, okay, this one is another book in the Penguin Deluxe Edition Classics, and this is The Dubliners, and this is by James Joyce. This is a book that I actually really, really wanted to read for my undergrad, but I didn't actually get into the class. Those undergrad English classes, they fill up pretty quick. Let me tell you, you have to be on it to get into the right classes. But I've wanted to read this for quite some time, and I just love this edition so much. It's absolutely stunning. And then here's the back as well. And if I'm getting this correct, this is a short story collection, which is actually highlighting all of the different types of people who live in Dublin. I don't know if I'm getting that correct, but that is what I remember from the synopsis a long time ago. I just love classics, especially this time of year. I always really, really want to just grab like an old classic and sit by the fire with a hot cocoa. It just sounds like the perfect way to spend a wintry night, you know? The next one is Treasure Island, and this is by Robert Louis Stevenson. And I'm gonna be honest, the only reference to this book I have is the Muppets Treasure Island, which is a classic in and of itself, you know? We're following Jim Hawkins, who I think is working at an inn, when one day somebody stumbles in and says that they have a map to treasure, and he boards a crew. Adventures and chaos ensue from there. And the final like package that I have to unbox here is right in front of me. Ooh, that was smooth. truth? Okay. And that is, yes, Sanditon, and this is by Jane Austen. I always feel like I'm saying the name of this wrong. Sanditon. Sanditon. Maybe like I should just add an English accent and then I'll be good. I think this is the only novel from Jane Austen that is actually technically not finished. So I don't know if it's finished or if it's just published as unfinished, but I love Jane Austen. I'm very excited to read a little bit more about this. I really don't know a synopsis, but I love Jane Austen. And I kind of want to read all of her novels, so. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Lexi, that's not even that many classics. Well, those were just the ones I hadn't unboxed yet. So, are you ready for more? The first one here is a Signature Classics edition. This, I think, is the Barnes & Noble new editions, and this is Frankenstein. I really wanted to have a copy that I could feel like I could annotate. I do have several other copies of Frankenstein, but I didn't really want to annotate those, and I just really liked the design of the really cool eyes and the nose, but also, I don't know, there's just something about this that really called out to me, and I would love to annotate this as I read. And Frankenstein is about Dr. Frankenstein who wants to create life and instead, in his own words, ends up creating a monster. But who is the real monster, Dr. Frankenstein? The next one I have is such a beautiful edition, and that is the edition of Dracula. I really want to read this. I love this edition so much. It has this really beautiful kind of like felt design. I think it's felt. I don't think it's velvet or anything. And then when you look on the inside, the end papers are so incredibly stunning. They're just beautiful. I love this as well because it fully lays flat. And in my opinion, the only like hardcover books now that I actively want to seek out and buy are the ones that lay out flat because it just makes it so much easier to read. The sides are also stenciled with bats, which I think is so cool. I don't know if it'll pick up, but look at how pretty that is. And in addition to that, there are some illustrations in here. There's not quite as many as like a full illustrated book, and they're really simple actually. I don't know if you can kind of see that, but I really like the simplicity of these illustrations. Let me see if I can find another one. It's really beautiful. And Dracula is about Count Dracula, who is a bloodthirsty vampire and evil bad man. Yes. Speaking of Dracula, I also picked up Dracula in the Penguin English Library editions. You might be thinking to yourself, why do you need 2 editions? And I don't. I have 2 hobbies. And they're married to each other. They're friends with each other, okay? And the 2 hobbies are reading books and collecting books. And it's always been a dream of mine to have my own library, which I'm so thankful and grateful that I have. And it's also always been a dream of mine to have certain collections of classics in full stock in my personal library. And this is just one that I really wanted to collect. So you don't need 2 editions. But isn't this pretty? Next, I picked up Mansfield Park by Jane Austen. Again, this is one that I'm not as familiar with, just like Sense and Sensibility and also Sanditon, but I'm very excited to read this. I think that we're following Fanny, and Fanny moves, I think, to her cousin's house, Edmund. I'm very interested to learn all about whatever love triangle thing happens in this particular book. Okay, next up, I have another one by the Penguin Classics Deluxe edition. These are the like illustrated editions, and this is the Divine Comedy, and this is by Dante. Now I have actually read the Inferno, but I have not read Purgatorio or Paradiso. And this is following our main protagonist who ends up going into the circles of hell and back, and it's just sort of about his journey through the perils of hell, which sounds very exciting, and it was very exciting to read when I read it in undergrad. I have not read the other 2, like I said, but I really enjoyed the Inferno. Also, fun fact, we had to do a debate in that class, and I ended up doing mine on the Inferno. I had to research a lot about this, and I could do such a long video essay on the intricacies and the political intrigue written in the Inferno that Dante actually did. A lot of it is like political pieces to people who like he was pissed off at in real life. And it's so fascinating, the drama that is in this book. Not only is it a very well written book, it was also quite scandalous at the time because several people who had actually wronged the author ended up being characters in this book. Next up, we have an Angela Carter book. This is The Magic Toy Shop by Angela Carter. I love Angela Carter. She has written such wonderful additions to fairy tales, and I don't really know a lot about The Magic Toy Shop. I saw this edition on Blackwell's, and I thought it was absolutely beautiful. We've got all of these gorgeous swans, and it's this metallic crimson and white cover. It's a Virago modern classic. One night, Melanie wanders into the garden wearing her mother's wedding dress. The next day, she learns that her parents are dead. She is sent to live with relatives, gentle Aunt Margaret and her brothers, Francie and Finn. Brooding over all is Uncle Philip, a toy maker who loves only the toys he creates. The next one is another Penguin Classics Deluxe edition. Why is that so hard for me to say? And this is the Sherlock Holmes edition. I think it is stunning, absolutely stunning. I don't know if you knew this, but I'm recently getting into a lot more mystery and also classic mysteries, and I really wanted to read quite a few Sherlock Holmes stories, and so I figured this would be a really fun edition to have. I think it's absolutely beautiful, but also I really just want to read some Sherlock Holmes stories. And if you are unfamiliar, this is all about a detective called Sherlock Holmes who solves unsolvable cases with his trusted assistant, Watson. Next, I have 3 Virago Classic editions. These are, again, books that I am trying to collect. I have several here already in my collection upstairs. The first one is going to be Mrs. Palfrey at the Claremont, and this is by Elizabeth Taylor. And I loved this particular edition because I just felt like this looked so beautiful. The next one is The Birds, and this is by Daphne du Maurier. Again, I just felt like this looked so stunning. And Daphne du Maurier is the person who wrote Rebecca, Jamaica Inn, and she also wrote My Cousin Rachel. And then the last one I have here is Strangers on a Train, and this is by Patricia Highsmith. And again, it's absolutely beautiful. And then rounding out the last of the classic editions, I have a few here from the Oxford editions. I think that these are quite nice to look at as well. The first 2 I actually purchased because of Gavin from How to Train Your Gavin. I ended up watching his Gothic recommendations video, and he actually said that he loved The Italian by Anne Radcliffe. And then he also recommended this particular book, which is The Mysteries of Udolpho. And I don't know a lot about these. I really want to study more Gothic literature. The Picture of Dorian Gray is one of my favorite books. Wuthering Heights is one of my very favorite books. I just love and am drawn to the genre so much. And so when he recommended both of these, and he said, I think he did like a dissertation or a thesis, particularly on this one, I just immediately added them to my cart. And then the last book is a book that I've technically already read, but I read the abridged version in my undergrad degree, and that is Don Quixote, and this is by Miguel de Cervantes. But Don Quixote is about a person named Don Quixote who believes that he is actually a knight sent on a quest, but really he's just a very confused old man. I do remember it's supposed to be a comedy, but for some reason when I read it in undergrad, I was really sad by a lot of it. I don't know, that might have just been me like reading too much into it, but I felt so bad for all of the characters involved. It's actually, I think, quite tragic the way some of the events kind of unfolded. I really want to read the entirety of the book. I do know that it's supposed to be a comic novel, so maybe if I read the entirety of it, I'll think it's really funny. So those are all the classics that I ended up getting. Let's go ahead and move on to the nonfiction, which is, I believe, a little bit smaller. Okay, so I've gone ahead and broken all of the nonfiction up into categories, and I don't really have a lot of books per category, and I don't even need them to be in categories, but here we are. The first category is going to be nature nonfiction, and I only have one for this, and that is H is for Hawk. There were so many people who recommended this one as well as The Soul of an Octopus, but my local bookstore actually didn't have the other one, so I ended up just getting H is for Hawk. And this particular book is about Helen MacDonald, who ends up raising I think, is it a falcon? No, it's a hawk. It's a hawk. She ends up raising a hawk, and I think while she's raising this, she's also trying to process her grief from losing her father. I hope I'm getting this right. And together, I think both of them are apparently supposed to discover the pain and beauty of being alive. Next up, I have two nonfictions here, and they are both nonfictions that are focusing on families, although they are both vastly different. The first one is Empire of Pain, and this is by Patrick Radden Keefe, and it is the secret history of the Sackler dynasty. And apparently this is an exploration of the Sackler dynasty. This is a family who essentially founded Oxycontin, and Oxycontin was a very powerful drug that had some slightly shady marketing tactics in advertising for it, and it is an incredibly addictive opioid. Next up is one called Hidden Valley Road, Inside the Mind of an American Family by Robert Kolker, and this particular one is a look inside a family who struggles with schizophrenia. And both of these books are both books that I actually found from Olive's channel, from A Book Olive. So if these sound really interesting to you, I highly recommend checking out her channel. She has very unique and interesting nonfiction recommendations. These are books that I wouldn't have picked out on my own, but the way she talks about them made them sound really, really fascinating. And so I wanted to go out and purchase them. She's great at, I think, reviewing books. So highly recommend checking her out. The next stack of books are books that all are exploring a very specific topic. The first one is Cultish by Amanda Montell, The Language of Fanaticism. And this was a book recommendation that so many of you guys were recommending to me on Instagram. And it sounds really, really interesting. And this particular book is actually exploring specifically the language tactics used in a lot of cults to kind of grasp people and like bring them into their cult. So many people have actually been affected by cults all over the world, and I think it's interesting to kind of dissect how that can happen and how easily that can happen to anybody. Next is a book that has my whole heart already. It's called Nerd Adventures in Fandom from the Universe to the Multiverse by Maya Phillips, and this is actually following Maya Phillips in her exploration of how fandoms have really had a large impact on specifically kids who were growing up. And I fully attest to this because there are so many fandoms I think that really shaped me as a person as I was growing up, from the Hunger Games to Harry Potter growing up to Star Wars, because my family was so into Star Wars. So I'm really, really intrigued to see what Maya Phillips says about this, but also as a person who absolutely is super proud of being a nerd, I just can't wait to learn even more about fandom culture. Next up is a book that, again, was heavily, heavily recommended to me, and it's called In Defense of Witches, The Legacy of Witch Hunts and Why Women Are Still on Trial, and this is by Mona Chalette. We are following celebrated feminist writer Mona, who explores the types of women who were accused of witchcraft and persecuted: the independent woman, the childless woman, and the elderly woman who for centuries have been censored, repressed, and even killed. I'm intrigued to see how she's going to relate witch trials to this. I love that this is a translated work. I actually really, really want to read more translated fiction. Since finishing Babel, I have come to appreciate translated work in a whole new light. And so I'm extremely excited to read this translated work. By the way, this was translated by Sophie R. Lewis. The next one is another heavily recommended book, but also one that I found from Olive's channel, and it's called This Is What It Sounds Like, and this is by Susan Rogers and also Augie August. And this book right here is actually all about dissecting our playlists and what they mean. So we're learning about what type of listener we are and why we gravitate to certain types of music. I am very excited. Apparently this is a very interactive book. There are quite a few songs and artists that are actually listed in here, and you're encouraged to pause reading and listen to the songs as you read along. The next one here are essay collections. The first one is one that has exploded all over BookTube, and that, again, a lot of my friends have recommended to me, and that is called Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. And this is a collection of essays from Dolly Alderton all about everything that she has learned on love. I don't know a lot more other than that, but I have heard amazing things about this book, and I've been very intrigued to pick it up for quite a while. And then the final two essay collections that I have here are both from David Sedaris. This one is David Sedaris, The Best of Me, and this one is Calypso. So I have only read one David Sedaris book before, but the David Sedaris that I read was hilarious. It was called, I think it was called Me Talk Pretty One Day. I read this way before I was on BookTube, and I had never read an essay collection before, but I thoroughly enjoyed his sense of humor. He's definitely not going to be for everyone. In fact, I know quite a few people are not fans of David Sedaris, but I just think he is such an incredible storyteller, and I love how he incorporates things that have really happened to him in these really interesting and funny stories. Next up, we have a short stack of memoirs. The first one is by Stephen King, and it's called On Writing, a memoir on the craft. And I don't know how much of this is going to be Stephen King's memoir and personal experiences versus his thoughts just on writing, but as a person who really, really wants to write and who looks up to Stephen King's success, I'm very interested to see what he has to say on the craft of writing, and also maybe on how certain things in his life have influenced his work. Next up is this very stunning book. It's called The Salt Path, and this is by Raynard Wynn. This is about a couple who I believe decide to walk 630 miles from Somerset to Dorset through Devon and Cornwall. Apparently, they decide to do this when one of them becomes terminally ill. They want to reconnect to each other through this walk. I'm very, very excited to read this. I think this is going to be really, really hard to read. I think it's going to be really hard hitting. It says the true story of a couple who lost everything and embarked on a transformative journey walking the southwest coast path in England. Next, we've got Furiously Happy by Jenny Lawson. This is a book that I have seen absolutely everywhere and on so many different lists. I really, really wanted to try reading this myself. And it's a funny book about horrible things. We're following Jenny Lawson as she explains a little bit about her mental health and some of the things that she struggles with, but she apparently says everything that's happened to her in a very funny way. And I love that. As a person who does struggle with anxiety, which is something that she struggles with, I'm interested to kind of see her perspective and how she maybe copes with anxiety, but also maybe relates a couple of funny stories about that. I think it's important to laugh at ourselves, and I'm excited to see what Jenny Lawson has to say. Next up is a book that, again, so many people have recommended to me, and that is Educated, and this is by Tara Westover. There have been so many incredible reviews on this book, and so many people, I think this was the #1 book that was recommended to me when I asked for suggestions. It says an unforgettable memoir about a young woman who kept out of school goes on to earn a PhD from the University of Cambridge, a universal coming-of-age story that gets to the heart of what an education is and what it offers, the possibility to see one's life through new eyes and the will to change it. So cannot wait. I think this will be really, really great and probably really, really inspiring as well. And it has been named one of the best books of the year by so many people. The Washington Post, the Oprah Magazine, Time, NPR, Good Morning America, The Guardian, The Economist, Financial Times, Bloomsburg, Publishers Weekly, Book Riot, the New York Times Public Library, Library Journal, San Francisco Chronicle, New York Post, Bustle. I mean, the endorsements for this are off the charts, and I am very excited to pick it up. And then the final memoir is one that has been circulating BookTube for quite a while now, and it's called I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCarty. This is a celebrity memoir. It's the only celebrity memoir I think that I have, unless Jenny Lawson is famous, I don't know. But this particular book is following iCarly star Jeanette McCarty. She actually hates when people refer to her as that. I've already finished this. I devoured it in a day. It's fantastic. I can let you know that I fully recommend it actually. But it's just about her relationship with her mother and also her relationship in the industry acting as a child actor. And I can tell you it is worth the hype. And I definitely agree with everyone who has suggested it to me because it is a fascinating but very hard read. It's sad what she goes through. But I really enjoyed actually reading this. And then finally, the last book that I have here, the last category, is a cookbook. And that is Heroes Feast, the official D&D cookbook. Dungeons and Dragons. Look at this. I was in the nonfiction section and I saw this and I was like, oh, you're coming home with me. Look at how beautiful the illustrations are. It feels sort of like you're picking up an epic fantasy, but they're recipes. This one, Elven Bread, Are you joking? I'm so excited. I actually kind of want to try cooking a couple of these on my particular channel. This is all Elven cuisine. Oh my goodness. I think, believe it or not, out of all of the books that I've hauled, this one is my favorite, and I'm so excited. I love cooking. I'm a big foodie. I love eating, and I really, really can't wait to try out a couple of these recipes, maybe even for my channel. So yes. And I think, you guys, that is it. Those are all of the books that I have recently purchased. I know it's a lot. It's a lot. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I always love hearing from you guys, so if you would like to leave me a comment, please let me know if you have any nonfiction recommendations or any classic recommendations you think I should check out. And if you have made it to this point of the video, please leave me the stack of books emoji. And a huge, huge thank you to all of my Patreons over at Fox and Wood. If you're looking to join a cozy little bookish community and a couple of different book clubs, you should go ahead and check that out. Links for that will be down below in the description, and a special thank you to all of my executive producers. Your support means absolutely the world to me. And I think that's it. So until next time, book lovers and friends, keep your head in the clouds and your heart in a book, and I will talk to you very soon. Bye!